skipping more marginal spots, and it just you will see more deep runs. Remember, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. I mean, this can be, of course, variants where we talk exactly about that, and it was good to refresh for my own mind. And then the week after, I just had an insane amount of deep runs. I think every day I had 1 or 2 day twos with a very good stack, and you messaged me, Ben, I'm very happy to see you that you have all these deep runs. And it was just also, of course, good to see, even though I didn't have these huge score, but finally I started having more deep runs, which was good for the self-confidence and this.
Yeah, you put yourself in the position to succeed, kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're out of the tournament, you can't win it, right? You have to be in it to win it, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. And the way I also liked when I study ICM, I also uploaded. It was just a boring. You remember the hand I shared with you, the ace 5 off on the final table from the button, where we're supposed to be very tight, especially in a PKO, where for second and first you basically you get the same amount of money, so it's essentially like a soft satellite, so to speak, because second and first get the same. It's like a ticket, and you only play for the bounty. And this is the spot. It's so boring. It's so boring to study because it's just open shoving. But at the end of the day, even though it's like 2% or 3% in EV difference, whether we shove, we raise, or we fold, but if you break it down to the prize pool, this decision itself, it's like $2, $3, $4, $5,000 if the prize pool is 100K. Whereas when you study something in the early game, as you mentioned, start of the tournament, just a couple of dollars, right?
Yeah,
So
the Queen Jack suited call, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, by the way, also something I really, really started internalizing more with when I started kickboxing and martial arts or Krav Maga. And my coach always told me, because it's cool, to do these fancy moves and these crazy check raises and these triple barrel bluffs, super sophisticated with blockers and all that kind of stuff. I know this is cool. I know this is sexy. But they also told me, also and I think it's applicable for poker, it's applicable for martial arts, you need to master the basics. You need to sit there, stretch your legs, being able to stand on one leg in order to make super cool Hollywood kicks, and you have to do that for 4,000 hours, 5,000 hours, and you have to master it. And then you can do some fancy shit because you have the stability, you have the stance, you have the coordination to execute moves that you see in Hollywood movies. Before, no. And that's why I really like your advice. Hammer in the rock solid fundamentals, 0 big blinds to 30 big blinds. This is boring. It's not a lot of fun, but this is gonna bring you the most money. And then you will also have the super rock fundamentals to master 40 big blinds, 50 big blinds, and deeper stack size that are a little more intricate to play.
You'll also study spots which people don't have charts for. So if you have 100 big blinds, usually everyone has around 100 big blinds. But if you're studying 12 or 17 big blinds, whatever, you'll input the stacks on the table to be 10, 15, 20, 17, 12. So there's mixed stacks. So you're starting to you're not just robotically following charts or whatever, which I think is the biggest downfall for anyone in poker now, is just following these charts. The chart says I have to 4-bet jam. It's I went through some hand histories yesterday of some guys I stake, and they're 4-bet jamming under the gun versus small blind, where the small blind was never bluffing because the chart says they should go all in with ace 4 or ace jack or king queen or whatever it may be. And just don't follow charts is my biggest advice ever. I've been in that zone where I follow the chart for every single decision, and I'm obsessed. Oh wow, the chart says 50%, 30%. Then I start randomizing. It's all bullshit. I've honestly followed the chart as much as anyone, and it's all bullshit, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, even advising for micro stakes when you started, and I also shared in my YouTube video. You don't need to have bluff 3-bets on micro stakes or low stakes. You have, I don't know, depends on the situation, stack size. You have a strong hand, go ahead and 3-bet. If you have a decent hand that can flop something, you get the odds, just call. You don't need to have balanced. If you need to have balanced 3-bet ranges on low stakes and micro stakes, there would be no money to make in poker. Think about it. That you have to play that perfect to make money. Dude, we can say GG, poker is dead. But it's not the case because people have a beautiful hand. They don't care how much you raise. They want to see a flop, and that's what you exploit, right? You have a big 100%. Hand, you bet big. It's so easy, but
Yeah, like I said, I think I played every single scoop event, which is like, I don't know, 200? Every low, every medium. I don't think I free bet bluffed once in any of the tournaments. Like 200 tournaments and like average of like, I don't know, 500 hands, like 10,000 plus hands for sure. And I never free bet bluffed once, I don't think.
Not even on not even on high stakes.
No, in the low stake,
You mean
unlike
low
the low
stakes?
and the
Yeah, I
medium
was
ones,
just about
like
to say.
55 and under, let's say. Because if my bluff makes me, whatever, there's a guy for sure gonna just give me his whole stack in the next hand.
Yeah, but I guess that also proves the point that poker is still so profitable, right? And I have to say, the sessions where I try to stay away from running big bluffs, especially in the earlier stages. I think I have to add something here, that in the later stages, I mean, if you watch YouTube final table replays, that there are really spots where you can play very aggressive against certain, but you need to be very sure. You need to identify those players who are just in for lettering. And I would say every final table you have 1, 2, 3 opponents who you can hardcore exploit. With playing
Yeah.
overly aggressive, playing any two, bluffing a lot, barreling a lot, three betting, squeezing a lot, and who are just too afraid.
I mean, I call it Pete Sampras. So like, Pete Sampras was the best serve and volley in tennis. So he didn't win. Like I say this a lot. Like imagine you're a tennis player. If you're a tennis player, you don't win your money by doing the shots like under your legs and stuff like this. Like the trick shots.
Yeah.
You don't win. The guys who are the best players, they don't do the trick shots. The guys who are the best players, they serve the best, so they have the best serves. And when the guy returns the serve, they then volley it hard and they win. And Pete Sampras was the best serve and volleyer. And I basically say in poker, you should aim to be Pete Sampras. You raise good ranges and then you c-bet well. You raise and c-bet, raise and c-bet, raise and c-bet. Like raise and c-bet is like serving and volley in tennis. Like you don't. Pete Sampras doesn't win his titles by doing that one miracle shot. Sure, it
Yeah.
may make him a point here, it may make him a point there, but he wins because he practices every day, 10 hours a day or 5 hours a day, whatever it may be, serving and volleying, and he masters just that. He doesn't try to master the crazy like underarm serve or something tricky. He just does the big serve, the big c-bet, and this is how deep in these tournaments, you'll find the right guys to raise into and then the right guys to c-bet against. And it's like, yeah, you want to be Pete Sampras. I had him as my scoop avatar for a week, Pete Sampras, because it was a reminder to myself, don't try to do the tricky shots, just be Pete Sampras for a week. And
I also had a
like,
reminder. I can even share it here. It was from a tweet from Olivier Bousquet. I think I also shared it in our. I taped it on my screen. It's here. Shoutouts to Olivier Bousquet. It's hard to read. Basically, you study and you learn. These are the best combos to call with. These combos block these value hands. These combos unblock these bluffs. Great. You're excited to use what you've learned. Then you play, and nobody ever bluffs. Also, reminder for my study sessions that I shouldn't be necessarily putting too much emphasis on bluff catching. I think this is something you can study with in group sessions when you get input from others, because it's very random, it's very player dependent, and then you get the feedback from others. Okay, here we should be bluff catching very wide because it's hard to have a lot of value. It's super easy to overbluff these spots. There are spots where I'm bluff catching insanely wide, but then other spots I'm bluff catching very, very tight. So, and I think it's something that you gain more value if you have user-to-user coaching or user-to-user review, right? Instead of Pyro, because Pyro doesn't really tell you, all right, my experience says these spots are overbluffed, these spots are underbluffed. I think you gain more value from these reviews with others. All right, Pets. I mean, that was an insane amount of content. I think a lot of our viewers are going to be falling in love with what you're sharing, and I can't wait to go in the lab, and everyone is going to be studying ICM. I actually think most won't, because it's the same with fitness and health. Everyone tells you gotta be eating healthy. It's not about doing more shit. It's not about trying to watch more courses or trying to it's about doing less, eating less shit, distracting yourself less, watching less TV shows, and simply using the time more effectively. I think this is something that most people are not able to apply. And once you start applying these high quality studying times, you actually start having more time for other shit as well. But people always look for, I need to do more, I need to study more, I need to do more of that, instead of look for doing less, you know, instead of doing more. And so I think we can be pretty safe, even though this is, I don't want to say sharing the secrets on how to beat online poker, but it's almost sharing the holy grail here. And I'm actually not afraid that it's going to kill poker, because most players still like, yeah, but I need to be balanced. they study all this blocker bullshit.
It's also like also with the ICM stuff, a lot of it you need experience as well for some degree, because you need to know what ranges to input for the other people. Like how wide will these guys call? Because sure, you can look at ICM GTO versus ICM GTO. Like I shove this, he calls that. But if someone calls like a middle pair where they should call a high pair, or ace 10 when they should call ace king, then your shoves don't become profitable anymore anyway, because they're calling too wide. Like they're spike calling you too wide. So you also need the experience of playing a lot and playing a lot of volume to see what the population actually do. So whenever you study anything, volume is always more important than studying, because you need to put in the volume to understand the ranges to put the inputs, you know, because if you don't put the correct inputs, you don't get the correct outputs. And it's dangerous to, you can almost get, it's almost worse to study incorrect ranges than it is to study not at all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.